From the rugged Olympic Peninsula to the soaring Cascades, Washington State's wild beauty is home to one of nature's most iconic creatures, the elk. Towering and majestic, elk have roamed these lands for thousands of years, playing a vital role in shaping the ecosystems they inhabit. Washington is home to two distinct species of elk: the Roosevelt elk, the largest of its kind, which thrives in the dense, temperate rainforests of the Olympic Peninsula, and the Rocky Mountain elk, which inhabits the drier, open woodlands of eastern Washington. These animals are remarkably adaptive, having evolved to thrive in the state's diverse habitats, from moss-covered forests and alpine meadows to arid shrublands and grasslands. For indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest, elk have long been a cornerstone of life, providing food, tools, clothing, and even spiritual significance. For millennia, indigenous communities lived in harmony with the elk, hunting them sustainably and recognizing their importance as part of a balanced natural world. Elk migrations shaped the land itself, creating trails that other species would follow and dispersing seeds that helped maintain thriving ecosystems. Elk are more than just a part of the food web, they are ecosystem engineers. Their grazing prevents overgrowth, allowing diverse plant species to flourish. Their movement fertilizes the soil, and their presence supports apex predators like wolves and cougars. Each elk plays a critical role in maintaining the delicate balance of their environment. However, this balance is now under threat. As Washington's human population grows, urban development expands, replacing wild spaces with sprawling neighborhoods, industrial zones, and agricultural fields. Elk habitats, once vast and interconnected, are increasingly fragmented by highways, fences, and urban sprawl. These changes force elk into unfamiliar and often dangerous territory, altering their natural behavior. Highways and roads, once few and far between, now intersect their ancient migratory routes, resulting in thousands of vehicle collisions each year, tragic and deadly for both elk and drivers. As elk are pushed out of their natural habitats, they often find themselves venturing into farmlands and suburban areas, creating tension between humans and wildlife. Farmers face crop losses, while suburban residents frequently encounter elk grazing in their backyards or gardens. This conflict sometimes leads to calls for culling to control elk populations. But the issue is not just about space, it is about survival. The loss of habitat means the loss of food sources, water, and shelter, leaving elk populations stressed and vulnerable. Urbanization isn't the only threat facing these majestic animals. Shrinking habitats and increased human presence have made elk more susceptible to disease. One alarming issue is hoof disease, a debilitating condition that causes painful lesions and deformities, often leaving elk unable to walk or forage. Scientists believe that habitat stress, coupled with poor environmental conditions, is weakening elk immune systems and allowing diseases like hoof rot to spread more quickly. Wildlife experts have seen an alarming rise in affected elk across Washington, raising concerns about long-term population impacts. On top of habitat loss and disease, climate change adds another layer of difficulty. Washington's changing climate is altering ecosystems at an unprecedented rate. Warmer temperatures, shifting rainfall patterns, and extended periods of drought are reducing the availability of the vegetation elk depend on. Alpine meadows are shrinking, while forest edges, critical for forage and cover, are changing in composition. Winters, once harsh but predictable, are now shorter and less consistent, disrupting elk migration and feeding patterns. The cumulative effects of these challenges create a harsh reality for an animal that once seemed invincible in its resilience. Despite these threats, there is hope. Conservationists, biologists, and local communities are working together to protect Washington's elk and their shrinking habitats. Wildlife corridors are proving to be a lifeline for these animals. These pathways, often created by restoring and protecting critical land between developed areas, allow elk to move freely between feeding, breeding, and calving grounds without encountering human barriers. By reconnecting fragmented habitats, wildlife corridors help reduce conflicts with humans and ensure that elk can maintain their natural migratory behaviors. Modern technology is also playing a role in elk conservation. GPS collars allow researchers to monitor elk movements, identifying critical migratory routes and areas of high conflict with human development. This data helps guide conservation efforts and influence decisions about land use planning. Habitat restoration projects are also making a difference, from reforesting clear-cut areas to preserving wetlands and reintroducing native plant species that elk rely on for food. Public education is another critical piece of the puzzle. Teaching communities how to coexist with elk, use fencing to protect crops, and reduce human-wildlife conflicts is essential for creating harmony between people and animals. Farmers are experimenting with new techniques to deter elk from their fields without harming them, and many property owners are learning to appreciate the beauty of sharing space with these creatures. The elk of Washington are resilient, but they cannot face these challenges alone. Their survival depends on the collective effort of conservationists, researchers, policymakers, and everyday people who are willing to protect their wild heritage. Each small step, from supporting wildlife corridors to planting native vegetation, helps ensure a future where elk continue to roam free across the landscapes of Washington. They are more than icons of the wild. They are guardians of the ecosystem, a living reminder of nature's delicate balance. It is up to us to ensure that the elk of Washington endure. By preserving their habitat, respecting their role in the natural world, and fostering coexistence, we can secure their place in our shared future. Together, we can protect these magnificent creatures and the wilderness they call home, ensuring they thrive for generations to come.